have to cut this one short.
So, okay, I'm ready. You ready to record?
Yep.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 77 of the Security Podcast on the In30 Network. We found a topic today just searching through our old topics that we haven't covered yet. And I think it started when Tom said, I switched to DuckDuckGo. And I thought, oh, screw that. Stop it. I want to start over.
Okay, good. Because I was actually getting ready to send you a message.
You forgot to record.
No, I hit record. It just said, oh, yeah, sorry. Can't do that. My bad. All right, let me kill Audacity and open this back up. Operating system should have Xkill. Xkill is my favorite program in the world.
Wait, it's just you touch that and it kills everything?
No. So I launch Xkill and it turns your mouse cursor into an X, and you click on the thing you hate and it dies. Okay, why is Audacity completely broken? Audacity. Ooh, unable to open slave, discard project, yes. Close terminal. Default front mic 0. That's not the correct one.
The fact that you have an array of microphones is another problem.
Yeah. Pulse, line 0. Nope. Pulse front mic 1. Testing, go. No. Oh, wow. Default front mic. Testing. I wish Audacity would say, hey, here's the thing we hear you the most out of. HW, no. I think, this is weird. Sys default, no. Yeah, it's completely lost this microphone.
Well, then we'll go on Hangouts.
Testing. Yeah, it just lost everything.
So I'll pull it from Hangouts. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Sounds good.
Let's do it again. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 77 of the Security Podcast here on the In30 Network. If you've been listening lately, Justin and I, way back when, probably 3 weeks ago, spoke about Googlefying your life. And we found out that just about everything that I do is through Google. And the question was, are you going to get the Googlefy new Wi-Fi service? And I said, I don't really need to. But it brought up the question that I want to ask Tom, is there a way we want to take all the Google services or all the big brand services and try and go with a different service that achieves the same functionality, the same level of convenience, and is just good overall, and see if we can go and live with that so we can actually decouple from Google if we needed to. And I think, yeah.
And, for the most part, I trust Google. People know that. I use a Gmail account as my main email account. Hangouts is kind of tied to my every life, and I use Keep and Google Calendar like nothing else. But some people don't trust Google. Some people want an alternative. So we're going to talk about that.
I mean, it's the first thing you have to ask is, do you trust the service you're using? And like you said, and I really think so, I have no reason to not trust Google. And they've said this before, if we lose your trust, we lose everything about you, your business, your everything. So we're not in the business of losing your trust. So with that said, let's just put that out there. But it's always good to have an alternative, because if something happened tomorrow, you need to find an alternative, it's better to scramble now rather than later.
Right. You should always try to have some sort of an idea. If you're on the internet a lot, if you have a pretty involved digital life like we have, it's always good to keep those alternatives kind of, in your head. Well, I can go here, I can move this to over there, and I can, run this on my server. I can take this to another company I trust.
And I think the best, and we spoke about this way back when with the Google account dashboard. And the scariest part that I would like, there's two scary parts on the Google account dashboard. which may say, you know what, maybe I do want to start looking at alternatives, are one, the audio searches. Google has a list, and they show it to you of every single audio search you do, presumably to get the audio better. So when you do ask it a question, you're more likely to get the right answer. And location history, which I like, but you may not like it. I don't know.
Yeah.
We spoke about that a while ago.
I like it. I like the time machine aspect of those parts on the Google account dashboard where I can go through, past search history or the voice, especially after training Google Now for several years and having those searches stored as kind of, hey, this is Tom's voice profile, and this is how we're supposed to listen to Tom because he talks kind of weird, and we don't like that. So we're going to make it a little bit better. That's really nice. And I like seeing the map, and I like having a little scroll bar to say, oh, where was I this day last year? So, oh, right, I forgot. I went on vacation to this place, and that was really cool. It's kind of a nice way to go back in time a little bit.
Look, I like the location feature just in case somebody said, where were you on this day? I at least have some sort of alibi. I don't think I can spoof it. I don't think it's easy to spoof it if you could, but just to say that, hey, you can, but it's not something like trivial. I don't think.
No, it's not trivial.
It's not like something I can do on the fly while being arrested, but we go.
No, it basically involves setting your Android handset to developer mode and using fake GPS locations. Yeah, and making sure it doesn't use Wi-Fi to look around you.
So, but let's start with. I guess let's start with Google search. I guess that's the big one. That's the first one.
Right.
And you've used, and you're really happy with DuckDuckGo.
I am. Now, it's not a 100%. I'm super happy with this, and it solves all my needs forever. Even Google didn't do that for a lot of things that I was searching for. But for the most part, DuckDuckGo has really satisfied everything, every sort of bullet point on my list when it comes to search. It's not as fancy as Google. Google does have some really great things with Knowledge Graph. If I need an answer, if I need to say, hey, list of movies Steve Buscemi is in, Google will show me up in the top bar, the posters for all of the movies Steve Buscemi was in. That's really cool. DuckDuckGo has similar things, not as tightly integrated and not as feature rich. The one thing it does have is it's got what I perceive to be tighter integration with Stack Overflow, which is like a programming help board. When I'm building stuff, when I'm doing technical stuff, when I'm searching on programming terms or programming questions, I tended to get better results from DuckDuckGo than I did with Google. Now, that said, the results weren't bad. They were just marginally better over on DuckDuckGo.
Well, I asked you this a while ago. Do we know where they're getting their search results from? Because they're not a search engine. They're just aggregating other search engines.
I think they're a search engine. I think they've got their own crawlers and other things out there. But I could be wrong. I know that Start Page and I think LX Quick or IX Quick, I can never remember what it is. They're basically the same company and page. They are rebranded Google searches, if I remember correctly.
And let me ask you this. If you wanted to do HTTPS encrypted.google.com in an incognito window, I think that would also get you as close to private browsing as you could. Google would still have the data, but they wouldn't know it was you.
If theoretically, yes, that's how it works. But also theoretically, they might exactly know it's you, right? If you're using Chrome and you're in an incognito, they might. Now, there's nothing suggesting that they are doing this. I want to make that clear. I've never heard of them actually going through with this. But yeah, you're not logged in. You don't have any cookies. But they might do browser fingerprinting through JavaScript and Canvas. They might do a callback in Chrome saying, hey, I'm the same device identifier as this guy who's outside of the incognito window. So yeah, there are ways to get around that. For sure, they'll be able to say, hey, this IP address is the same as that IP address. So now incognito is not foolproof, but I think Google treats it with some respect. At least one would hope.
I mean, look, it's not very hard to have two different windows, and if you want to test out DuckDuckGo's functionality or Bing versus Google's functionality, feel free. It's not like it's this hard task. The other one is, you know what? People have said good things about Bing for the most part, and if you sign up with their membership rewards, you can actually be paid very little, but be paid to search. And I know people who do that for like really nonsensical answers rather than real research.
Right. I actually I spent a couple days on Bing in my search engine search, because every couple years or so I'll move on, and I was using Startpage for a little bit, and then I actually went over to Bing, and it was kind of odd. The search results are virtually identical to Google's. I just think Bing is a little bit prettier. It's less clean, but it's a little prettier than Google's page. And then I ended up on DuckDuckGo, and that's where I've been for the past year.
And we know, and DuckDuckGo knows, and Google knows that us telling you about this is not going to change the needle in any way. Google is still going to command 73% of the search, and at that level, what's 72.5% versus 73%? So, and as far as people like it, look, again, it's up to you, and we can go from there. I guess the next one is a browser. I mean, I don't know what Chrome's browser share is, but I think it overtook Firefox a few years ago.
I want to say they're at 50% or above. It depends on what scale you look at, though.
And I think it's 50% or above if you count all mobile, and you count and all Chromebooks and everything else. But I'm on Chrome, and again, I have no reason not to be on Chrome. Tom, you're on Firefox, and I think Firefox to me seems a lot speedier, but you're saying that the memory issue is still there for both.
Yeah, both browsers, I mean, Firefox and Chrome are really memory intensive. They are really heavy. Browsers are not this kind of lightweight, hey, I'm going to the internet to ask Jeeves something anymore. Browsers, for all intents and purposes, are basically an operating system on top of the operating system you're already running. They can do everything, as we've seen now. You can have IDEs, you can, edit a video kind of rudimentarily in a rudimentary way. They're really impressive, and Firefox is among the biggest of the browsers. So it operates decently. It could be better. I think Chrome has got better out of the gate performance, but at the end of the day, I hardly notice the difference between the two of them when they're loaded up with all my add-ons.
I mean, Lifehacker used to run a yearly, which is the best browser, and they haven't done that in a while. Right. Where they would run it. Look, and there's something to be said about the Apple services that I mean, I would have that I would just like to mention. If you're on a Mac, maybe check out Safari. I'm on a Mac, but because I sync everything to everything, I do like having Chrome do that. And yes, in Firefox you can do it.
If you're on a Windows machine, do not install Safari under any circumstances.
Absolutely. Safari on the Windows is awful.
Yeah. Not only is it a bad user experience, it is just one giant walking security hole. It is really bad.
But if you're on a Mac, I don't want to say stuck on a Mac because I'm on a Mac and I enjoy myself. But if you're on a Mac, try out Safari. It may do what you need to do. And then you have to ask yourself, what do you want to do? If all you're doing is browsing and you don't run to extensions and everything else, figure that out. Figure out what's exactly the right answer.
I know people who are huge fans of Opera. Now, I'm not, because I don't like my browser having every tool in the kitchen sink loaded up into my browser. But some people do. Some people like having the integrated torrent client, and I think they do even email and calendaring in Opera. If I'm remembering that correctly, Opera does basically everything now, and it's pretty speedy to boot.
So, I mean, you have your choices there, and not to say that Project Spartan or IE whatever 12.5 or whatever number they're on may be a way better experience than we thought it would be.
Right, and I actually was on Chrome. I moved to Firefox because of the way Chrome was handling certificate expiry. because I didn't like that. I thought they were making the browser less secure. And there are people on both sides of the fence saying, hey, expiring certificates doesn't do anything. And other people are saying, oh, you have to expire certificates because these websites that are expired that Chrome says are fine prove that it's broken. I kind of fall to the latter side of the fence. So I got rid of Chrome, put Firefox on everything, and I'm pretty happy with it. Firefox has definitely got a better add-on model, a better plugin model than Chrome does. Chrome's getting better. It's way better than when it first launched, but Firefox is still king.
And then we have, I guess, let's take email. Do we have an alternative to email?
It's difficult because Gmail, I love the interface. I love the power of it. Yahoo Mail is just trash nowadays. Outlook.com, I hear, isn't too bad.
I was going to say that. Outlook, I've heard very good things about.
So there's Outlook. There's a lot of email providers out there. But, frankly, you could buy a domain and buy your own email. And a lot of them have got a decent control panel. And I think if I ever move away from Gmail, I'm just going to stand up. I'm just going to buy an email box from my domain host.
And I mean, again, if you're on a PC or whatever you're on, all the clients have dedicated mail clients. You don't necessarily have to run in the web.
Right. Yeah, I actually, so as much as I love the Gmail interface, I use Thunderbird on just about everything. I need a little bit more power, and even more than that, I need good PGP integration. So Thunderbird is on everything, Enigmail is loaded in there, and it works great. It's a little slow sometimes, especially when initially syncing your mail down, but after that, it's wonderful to use.
What I will say is I do not recommend your ISP's mail.
No, stay far away from those.
Just on the simple convenience, and you may not realize it now, is if you're tied into a location, if you move off Comcast into Fios, you lose that email address.
Yeah.
So if we could say one thing, make sure I would go for a web-based thing where that moves with you rather than ties you down to a location.
Yeah, and ISP-based email tends to be kind of a really poor user experience, really kind of bad to navigate, bad to log into, bad to use. Some of them partner with bigger players like Yahoo or Google, but a lot of them try to run it themselves, and they'll say, hey, you get 100 whole megabytes of email storage, which, as we all know today, is nothing, right? I mean, you can't even find a flash drive that's less than 100 megs today.
Yeah, so yeah, stay away from there. You want to go into, I don't know, cloud storage?
Yeah. So if you're on Google Drive, today is a fantastic day to be alive and move off of Google Drive if you want. I've got stuff I've used tons of cloud providers, trying to find the one I like the most. Dropbox is the first alternative that comes to mind. They've had security issues in the past, so if you're putting anything sensitive up there, encrypt it before you put it in Dropbox. It'll save you a headache. I know Box has gotten pretty rave reviews. Microsoft SkyDrive is actually pretty stellar if you're on a Windows-based platform.
I was going to say SkyDrive over Box. Box still has their stupid limits. Like, we'll give you unlimited storage. However, from the client, you can only upload 500 megabyte files at a time, and it's just really, really stupid limits. But yes, if you don't really care, maybe do a dual solution with Dropbox for your public stuff that you don't really care, and then find something else. Maybe roll your own, and Tom's going to tell us about his.
Yeah. And I used to use OwnCloud. It took all my stuff when Dropbox had, after like the third major security gaffe where they opened up everyone's files to the whole internet, I decided to take my more private data, even if it was encrypted, and move it off of their service. So I went to SpiderOak. Great application, great bunch of guys. I do like the software they built. It's really difficult to use. It is not fun to use. If you can get past the learning curve, It works decently well. I had some synchronization issues, so eventually I moved off of it, and I went to OwnCloud. Now, OwnCloud is not perfect. They have also had security issues, which is why I'm running it on my own server and kind of taking measures to try to protect that data. Anything really sensitive gets encrypted before it even goes in there, even though I'm running the server and the data is stored where I put it. I'm still going to be a bit careful. If you want, OwnCloud has a hosted solution, or what makes it powerful is you can rent a server from Amazon, DigitalOcean, Rackspace, any of those guys, and put up your own Dropbox-like thing. You install the OwnCloud app on your computer or your phone, and it works just like Dropbox, except you control it. So it's really cool. You have Dropbox, you're running it, and you can be the only person on there. Really powerful stuff. The bad thing is the storage you're paying for, running the server you're paying for, it's not free by any means, but it does work pretty well.
I mean, I'm gonna still stick with, and I run my own. Look, I run my own free NAS box that in my basement, but for the most part, I'm on Google Drive. I think if you want something really simple and to tell grandma and to share, you know what, I would work with Dropbox and encrypt what is really, really secure before you put it on the internet.
Right.
Or if you have some web space, maybe encrypt it and keep it there, because a lot of the web space providers, web host providers, have some sort of, we'll give you a gig of free space or whatever it is.
Yeah, and there's nothing saying you have to pick one of these guys and run with them. You can get a Box account, a Dropbox account, a SkyDrive account. If you've got an Apple account, you can throw stuff in there. And try it all out. See what you like. See what does better things. For public sharing, I mean, Dropbox is stellar compared to Google Drive. It's gotten a little worse over the years, but the Google Drive seems to have kind of it's more of a barrier. I don't know what it is. It's probably a UI thing, but it feels slower to just get a link to someone compared to the way Dropbox does it.
And I mean, again, we can go on and on about the different details of each one. So I was going to move on. Calendar.
Calendar. I don't know if I have a good solution for this. I mean, you can run your own. OwnCloud isn't just storage. It's got a lot of things in it, including contacts and calendar. So if I had to move off of Google Calendar, as much as I love that, I would go to my OwnCloud box. Now, again, if you're going to Outlook.com, if you're going to the Microsoft side of things, use their calendar. It's built right in. It'll integrate with the email, and you can manage it all centrally from their app.
I mean, I guess at that level, contacts, calendar, what's it called? Email. Yeah, I would pick one of them, and they all have it, whether it be Yahoo or Outlook or whatever else. I
want to say Zoho has got a suite of Office apps online that's pretty good. So they've got mail as well. They've got a lot of like really high level business stuff. If you wanted, customer integration stuff for customer relationship management, but they've got normal stuff like documents or storage or spreadsheets. The drill. But yeah, they've gotten pretty good reviews over the years.
I mean, on either one, on both the Mac and the PC, the default, let's say Outlook calendar, will let you sync. The problem is on the PC, I think it's still back-end syncs to Outlook.com. And the Mac apps are just as good, and they are technically a third party. Apple doesn't, at least to my knowledge, care what you do with them. I mean, I don't think they're not selling you. They're selling you the hardware and the software. They're not selling you the experience. Or that's the wrong answer. But yes, I would recommend the Apple suite there also if you're on the Mac.
Yeah, if you're on the Apple side of things, you've got your iPhone, you've got a Mac at home, you like the Apple ecosystem, and more importantly, you trust Apple with your data. Throwing everything into that ecosystem works really well. I am not an Apple guy. Some people have labeled me an Apple hater. I wouldn't say that's untrue, but I have to say the only person that comes close to touching Google in terms of integration with your life, your devices, and other services is Apple. They are the only competition that can stand up to Google right now.
I mean, if you have an iPhone and you're Mac curious and you're doing everything there anyway, because you have to remember, we're talking a lot of inside baseball here, but you have people that live on their iPhone and their iPad. That's all they're doing. They're only checking their mail on those devices, and that's it. And they may open the Gmail interface on the computer, but that's about it. They're adding a new event, and they don't care where it goes to. It just goes somewhere. So if you're there and you're thinking about getting a Mac and everything else, there's something to be said about checking it.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's not a bad place to live online. And I hate to say that because I really, personally, I do not enjoy the Apple experience. I loathe the Apple experience. I tried the Apple experience. But if it's for you, have at it.
So, I mean, here's a hard one. GPS directions.
Now, this I actually do have a tool for. Again, if you're on Apple Maps is there. It has not gotten good reviews, but it's there and it's getting better. If you're on a desktop machine, OpenStreetMap. It's fantastic. And by fantastic, I mean it's okay. It's the best open alternative to mapping that there is. Bing Maps is absolutely fantastic. It really is. In terms of head-to-head Bing versus Google Maps, Bing gives Google a run for their money on this one. You've still got MapQuest. They still exist. I'm not sure who still uses them anymore. Google is still the gold standard when it comes to mapping. But if you're looking for a navigation program on your phone, I don't know if Bing has one. They're the proprietary ones. You can download, the TomTom app and have it be your GPS. But if you wanted to do something more open, OSM AND. Just type that into either the Google Play Store, or you can download it directly, or you can download it through the open source app store, F-Droid. And it will download offline maps. So even if you lose data connection, you've still got maps right there, and it'll do GPS. Now, in practice, using it has been absolutely stellar when it comes to, hey, I'm right here and I need to get to this address that I'm going to type in. It's perfect. It's actually a little more feature-filled than Google Maps because it'll show you, hey, this road has got this speed limit, or you're going over the speed limit, you have to slow down, you're getting a ticket, sort of stuff. Pretty handy for a guy like me who just doesn't pay attention to anything. That said, if you're looking for a business and you type it into OpenStreetMap, chances are it will not be there. More heavily populated areas are better than the middle of nowhere, Ohio, where I live. But it's getting there. I try to improve it when I can, but it's not great. That said, it's open.
Well, I was going to say, I was going to catch you if you said Waze. So everyone says use Waze. The problem with Waze is that it was purchased by Google.
Right. Google owns that now.
And I wish they would actually integrate it more, but I was going to say OpenStreetMaps is actually Google's API for maps actually is very expensive. So apps like Foursquare and other mapping apps are using OpenStreetMap as their mapping source over that. But yes, if you have to drive around, that's one of the other things, because if you don't want Google tracking you and you need to move away from it, location is still a big deal.
Right. And keep in mind, if you have an Android phone and you've opted into Google's tracking, even if you're not using Maps, they are still pinning your location on that map. So make sure to go into your settings and uncheck all the boxes. One thing you can do, if you wanted to fully go anti-Google, and I've actually done this with a tablet that I have just to see what the experience would be like. Load up a custom ROM, load up Cyanogen, tends to be the most popular out there. You can pick any Android ROM and just don't install the Google apps at all. You won't get the Play Store, but there are things like F-Droid out there that have open source apps, or I think GitJar is still around, or even the Amazon App Store, which has got a ton of apps. Now, you'll be missing Gmail, Play Music, other stuff like that, but it works rather well. And frankly, my battery life doubled.
Oh, because you don't have Google Play services running
Yep.
constantly. So I was going to say, do we recommend Amazon App Store as another App Store alternative, which I like? I mean, people give it a bad rap, and we talked to the Pocket Cast people who had real big issues with them. But overall, I mean, if for a source of non-updatable apps, because people say they don't update them all the time, games and stuff, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, Amazon they've got a pretty fantastic app store. If you want open source stuff, especially OSM or there's a ton of open source apps out there that I use on my phone. F-Droid. F-Droid is fantastic. It's the free open source Libre software for hippies kind of open source app store. And it works really well. Not as pretty as Google Play, but just as functional, minus one or two features. And then there's GetJar, which personally I haven't used, but it looks like they do have some bigger name apps on here. So that's another alternative. And on Android, in the very worst case, you download the APKs and you install them. Now, I wouldn't recommend that. I would go through a trusted app store because Android malware does exist, especially if you're just installing APKs that you find in the street.
I mean, yeah, it's Google. Look, Google does a very good job of scanning them now. And I don't know if I would be completely anti-Google Play Store because I don't think they have a vested interest other than you're giving them the 30% when you buy it. But if you really want to go tinfoil hat, yes, they're tracking your app purchases and this and that.
Right. And, you don't have to get an Android phone. They're cheap. They're easy to hack. They're easy to put your own software on. But you've got the iPhone and you do have Windows Phone, which is more or less functional today.
And look, on the cheap end, the Windows phones are making a killing. All the free phones I see around, they're either an older iPhone or they're a Windows phone.
Yeah.
And I don't hear too many complaints like of I don't know how to do this. And maybe because people who buy cheap phones only text message and make phone calls, but who knows?
And if you're big into this is a very slim slice of our listenership, but if you're big into avoiding Google and also big into photography, check out the Windows phones because some of those, the cameras are just outstanding. They're really cameras first and phones second. And
not to say that the Samsung apps are worthwhile, but there you go. You have Samsung apps on a lot of the Android phones. Look, it's if you're questioning whether you should stay with Google or stay on this ecosystem or whatever it is, don't wait till the absolute last minute when somebody violates your trust. Start looking at it now, just in case something happens. You don't have to make a commitment now, and you don't have to make one later. But if you don't want to have to all of a sudden completely change.
Right, and we probably shouldn't have to say this, but I know we do. These online services are not infallible, right? Google, it'll be a far stretch if Google just disappears from the world tomorrow. But something like Foursquare could. Something like Instagram could if they weren't acquired by Facebook. You get the idea. Anything where you can back up the data, where you can take this stuff and store it yourself, please do it because that stuff can just blink out of existence. Just like we've seen time and time again with web properties. They disappear and your data is gone with it. There's no recourse. There's no getting it back. There's no backups. They shut off the servers and sold them to some guy. Gone. So keep backups as much as, Google Photos and Flickr have your interest in mind in keeping that stuff stored and secure. There's no guarantee that something horrible might not happen, right?
And with that said, we definitely have to wrap it up. But
yep.
And Tom hit it at the end there. Just always have that thing in the back of your mind, and we'll go from there. So, okay, guys, we will see you next week.
See you guys.
Bye.